Hey everybody, Nate Hare and Lindsay Mersino here on another Directed IRA webinar. We appreciate you guys tuning in today. We've got a really great webinar and it's the basics. This is what everybody always asks for when they're learning about self-direction and what it's all about. Tell me how it works. Tell me what I can invest in. And we're going to cover that today on today's webinar. But first, I do have a special announcement. We are doing a pre-Labor Day sale for you guys who have been stuck on the fence. Maybe you're here just trying to learn that little extra bit of information before you open an account and start self-directing. Well, guess what? This week is the week to do it. We're doing a pre-Labor Day special. Every account you establish with Directed IRA, whether that's a self-directed traditional, a self-directed Roth, a SEP, a 401k, a self-directed health savings account.
All right, they get it, Nate, all of them.
Education savings account, every single account, we're going to give you $200 off the first year annual fee. We do have an IRA specialist on the line right now, Michelle Rodriguez. Michelle, if you want to throw your book a call link in the chat, you can book a call directly with Michelle. Or you can scan that QR code right there and talk to anybody on our team, but get those accounts established today. Get them set up. We don't have a funding minimums, but get your ball rolling. And if you're not convinced yet, we'll convince you here in the next 60 minutes or so.
We've got 58 minutes, Nate.
Okay, 58 minutes. So just wanted to throw that out there, and we're going to jump right into the program. Before we do that, just some quick announcements on the webinar attendees. If you have questions, we've got a Q&A box. Type your questions for myself or for Lindsay or even for Michelle. Type those questions in the Q&A box. We're actively monitoring that. We'll answer some live. We may answer some not live. But if you want to just chat, if you want to network, I'm a big fan of networking. I know we have a lot of people tune in from all over the country. They want to shout out their name, where they're from, what they do. Go ahead and keep those conversations to the chat. But if you got questions for us, put those in the Q&A box. So let's just jump underway, and we're going to talk about really the basics about self-directing your retirement plans, self-directing your IRAs, your old 401ks, other tax-exempt plans, but investing those plans in what we call Main Street assets versus Wall Street assets. We'll talk about what those assets are, how do you use it, how do you set up an account, and we've got some cool case studies on actual clients that have used self-directed retirement plans to their advantage.
Now, as always, guys, we are not here to give legal, tax, or investment advice. So Nate made me read this slide so that I can be the party pooper, unfortunately. But we can't be giving any advice. So everything that you're going to be hearing today is strictly for educational purposes only. We're here to help plant seeds and start some conversations, but always consult with your attorneys and your tax professionals before you proceed with any investments.
Now, why is this important to you guys out there? Well, if you look at the average American, where do most Americans have their money? In their bank account or in their retirement accounts? Well, most people have their money in their retirement accounts. This is what their nest egg. There's over $45 trillion sitting in U.S. retirement plans. But when you look at the numbers, very few of these individuals that have retirement plans, I'm talking to you guys out there, are not investing in alternative investments. But when you look at the ultra wealthy, they are investing their retirements in alternative investments. But this is new information to a lot of us because this isn't sold to us by our guys at Fidelity or Charles Schwab. You've got to come to a webinar like this and actually realize there are other options for me investing my retirement plan into alternatives instead of just investing in traditional assets like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and ETFs. And the numbers don't lie. You've been able to do this since the mid-'70s. And we've got some shocking numbers just to show you guys what the actual wealthy do with their retirement plans.
Mid-'70s, weren't you like in your 20s then? So you've been saving for a long time, right?
Yeah. I hear
ready to retire. But to Nate's point, this is what the wealthier people are doing. And that's why we love what we do. We love sharing this information, is because this information is not just for the top 1%. The wealthier investors already invest in alternative assets. It's not just a coincidence that their accounts are larger. It's absolute strategy. But you know what? The numbers say it all. Nate, can you kind of elaborate a little bit on this awesome article you found?
Yeah, so this was interesting, and this was information that a combination of different reports. And when it looks like when they audit retirement accounts, here's the shocking number when it comes to alternative investments inside retirement accounts. Now let's just define it. We'll go over some specifics, but traditional investments are your traditional publicly traded investments, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, all the things that we kind of mentioned there. Alternative investments are things like real estate, debt funds, cryptocurrency, land, investments into private businesses not publicly traded. All sorts of alternative investments are available to you out there. Most people just don't know they can have it in a retirement plan. Here's the numbers from a combination of reports. The average investor with a retirement plan has only 5% of their asset portfolio in alternative investments. Ooh. So 95% of most of Americans' wealth in their retirement plan is invested in the stock market. We're not against the stock market. I think you can make good money in the stock market. However, when you look at what the millionaires are doing, millionaires, and those are with net worth of $1 million up, 22% of their assets in their retirement account are alternatives. And it doesn't stop there. When you look at the ultra wealthy, the investors that are worth $30 million or more, 50% of their assets are in alternatives. It's not a coincidence. Like Lindsay said, it's a strategy. And here's an article that I always revert back to because I just thought it was so interesting. This is an article from Forbes, March 2020. And the thing that caught my attention was the title. It said, "Got alternatives in your IRA? Watch out."
Sounds scary.
Yeah, you think that's going to be scary, right? The whole article was simply about watch out because the IRS is now focused on finding out what these self-directed IRAs are made up of. Prior to 2000, let's say 2015, the IRS didn't really care about self-directed IRAs because so few people used them. But as they started growing in popularity, they started asking us as self-directed IRA custodians to show them what are in these self-directed IRAs. We can't see them. They're not on the stock trader. You have to actually ask the custodian, what do you hold inside your client's retirement plans? And that was the whole purpose of the title, was that they were going to start having reporting mechanisms, which we do today, that show that we report to the IRS what we hold. But this is why the IRS wanted to know more about these self-directed IRAs. The IRS did an audit of 27,000 different IRAs, random audit. Of the 27,000 IRAs, they found that only 2% of the account holders of those 27,000 self-directed and owned any alternative investments in their retirement plan. 2% of 27,000 used self-directed IRAs. But if you just took the accounts valued above $5 million, just those accounts, most of the people were self-directing, and 25% of the assets in those accounts above $5 million were alternative assets. Wow. So it was the outsized balance of the self-directed plans compared to the other plans that got the trigger for the IRS to look deeper into this. So it just goes to show you that the rich and the wealthy have been using self-directed plans to buy things on Main Street versus Wall Street since the mid-'70s when IRAs were created. But now it's just becoming more popular. It's gaining in popularity because people are looking for alternative investment options.
And I like to credit us with that as well, Nate, because we're out here preaching the good word for over a decade now about self-directed retirement accounts. It's still crazy to me that it's such a niche area and that not everybody knows this. But luckily for you guys are in that little 2% section that Nate mentioned earlier, where not everybody knows about this. Not everybody's doing this. A lot of you already have retirement accounts. A lot of you, I just saw a couple messages. Some of you just opened up in the last week. So welcome. Congratulations. We're so excited that you have caught on this trend and didn't have the analysis paralysis that can really strike some people sometimes. Good news though, we allow alternative investments here at Directed IRA. Now, when we say alternative investments, what the heck are we talking about? There's a lengthy list that we couldn't even do a complete list because it's just endless as far as what you're allowed to do. But just to kind of compare for you guys, we've got Fidelity there up on the screen. As you know, Fidelity is an IRA custodian. They're also a broker. They're just like us. So when you're thinking of Directed Trust Company, we want you to realize that we are also a custodian, just like Fidelity, just like Schwab. You know, we're one and the same there. So a lot of people are like, wait, what do you guys do? Who are you regulated by? We're regulated by the state of Arizona. We've got our trust license, again, just like Fidelity and Schwab and all those others out there, all those more traditional firms. Fidelity though, and Schwab, they really focus on those traditional investments. That's your stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs. I like to call them the more boring investments, but very necessary to have as part of your portfolio. We're all looking to diversify, but Fidelity will focus on those types of investments while we focus on the alternative investments. So although all of our clients can invest in traditional investments as well, we also allow them to invest in the alternative space. This can be real estate, cryptocurrency, precious metals, tax liens, cows. You name it, we've seen it. Oil and gas, the list really goes on. So there's no collective all-inclusive list out there. Right. And the only two things that you cannot invest in that the IRS has been really specific on are life insurance contracts and collectibles. So unfortunately, Nate's Beanie Baby collection cannot be done within his Roth IRA. I know you're bummed.
I know. I was hoping to make big gains on that.
Yeah, next time. But really, at the end of the day, when people hear self-directed, they think, wow, it's something so unique and so different. It's really not. Self-directed is really just a marketing term that we use to describe that your IRA can invest in alternative assets. You may see some companies out there, not to mention any names, but it rhymes with I was going to say Schwab, but that's literally it. Yeah. So Charles Schwab, for example, they've got a self-directed IRA, and that self-directed IRA allows you to invest in whatever stocks you want and ETFs you want. It's not a truly self-directed account that can get you into alternatives. But at the end of the day, that's all it is. Self-directed IRA is merely a marketing term. When it comes to the IRAs at Fidelity and the IRAs here with us, they're all the same. The contribution requirements and limits are the same. The transferability, the rollovers, the tax forms we file, everything is the same as you would with an IRA over at Fidelity.
And realize the reason why we say it's a truly self-directed IRA is that we don't have investments to sell. That's the difference between us and Fidelity. Like Lindsay said, we're both custodians of retirement assets. But the reason why they only let you buy stocks, bonds, and mutual funds is because that's how they make their money too. They make money on commissions and broker fees. We don't have commissions and broker fees here. We're just a flat fee service business. But you as the client, you as our client, you have to tell us what the investment is. You have to show it. We'll tell you how to buy it in your IRA, whether that's real estate or crypto or something else. But that's where the self-direction part comes from, is you've got the keys in your hand to invest in anything you want outside of what she mentioned, life insurance contracts and collectibles. And there's a lot of plans that you can do this in. It's not just your traditional Roth. We've got more plans than that.
Absolutely. So not only do you have the personal plans, which those are your traditional IRAs, also known as a rollover IRA sometimes, the Roth IRA. Those are great options for individuals. We also allow you to utilize employer retirement plans here. So you can have a SEP IRA. You can have a solo 401k if you're self-employed and don't have any full-time employees. You've also got the advantage of some specialty plans that you can actually use today for certain expenses.
Love the specialty
Those
plans.
I know you're so obsessed with the HSA, especially in your older age. The HSA is awesome, though. You get deductions on the way in, tax-free growth. I get why he's obsessed with it in his older age. Makes total sense.
Hey, as you get older, you start to realize you've been tax-free your entire life. And this is why I get so excited about these plans, because these plans are not taxpayers like you and I.
Precisely.
Right?
Yep.
So these plans are all by definition tax-exempt trusts. We're the custodian of the trust. You pick the investments in the trust.
Bingo.
But if you utilize them correctly, this is the way to get investments to grow completely either deferred or what we like, completely tax-free. But it's not just for tax-free retirement. It's for tax-free distributions to pay for health-related expenses for you and your family through a self-directed HSA. Even self-directed covered education savings accounts can be self-directed. Think about it like a Roth IRA. However, you don't have to wait till 59 and a half to take money out to pay for your kid or your grandkids' education expenses from pre-K through college, tuition, books, computers. So the point of the story is that if you take one screenshot of one slide today, take a screenshot of this slide. This is the meat and potatoes of what we provide you as a vehicle here at Directed IRA that can be invested in alternatives, but you can use the distributions from the income on those investments to pay for your retirement tax-free, to pay for healthcare tax-free, to pay for education tax-free, and pass on more generational wealth. We did a lot of work on these too, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. But just to make a quick point on that slide that you guys saw with all of those account types, this is not an all-inclusive list. We also allow you to self-direct your 401k. You have to work with a third-party administrator that's separate from us, but you can self-direct your 401k plan, your profit-sharing plan. You can also self-direct your inherited IRAs, your Roth solo 401k, and your after-tax solo 401k. So there's even more to add to this list, but these are the main ones that we see on a daily basis.
And if you guys want, we're not going to go over all of these plans individually. We've got different classes for this, but we have slides on traditional versus Roth IRA, the pros and cons, the SEP versus the solo 401k, pros and cons to that. Even put the contribution limits and the deadlines on there for you guys. Also the HSAs, the annual contributions, the deadlines, even the ESAs. We've got additional classes on this, like I said, but if you guys want the full PowerPoint, just shoot me an email at the end of the presentation. And Michelle, if you can throw my email in the chat, just throw that in there. If you guys want a copy of this slide deck, I'll send it to you this afternoon. So, all right. Well, let's talk about some negatives first.
Okay.
Okay. And then we'll get into the good stuff and actually show you how do you self-direct those plans we just mentioned and alternatives, and show you some actual real life case studies of clients utilizing and applying their knowledge to their investments in their retirement plan versus just investing in publicly traded investments. So when you look at the IRS tax code, as Lindsay mentioned earlier, the IRS doesn't really care about what we own in our retirement plan, as long as it's not a life insurance contract or my Beanie Babies, right? Collectibles. Those are the only two investment restrictions in the tax code. Anything else you can hold title to can be owned in the name of your IRA. Anything else you can pretty much drop a purchase contract to buy, your IRA can be the buyer. So the IRS doesn't care about what we invest in, but they too care about who we transact with. And this is the biggest thing when you talk about your retirement plan, is you got to realize your retirement plan and you, the individual, are two separate beings. Okay? You're by definition the fiduciary to your retirement plan. Your job to your retirement plan is to make contributions, to invest it or choose investments and work through your custodian, whether it's Fidelity buying stocks or it's Directed IRA buying alternatives. And then you receive your benefit as an individual from the distributions you take from the plan. But once assets are in the plan, they're owned by the plan until you take distributions. Remember, you're the fiduciary to the trust, and the trust is tax exempt. So one of the biggest things the IRS doesn't want, since we have a fiduciary responsibility to make our IRA grow, we cannot, as the fiduciary, tell our IRA to buy our own stuff. Right? If I own a house, the investment in my IRA can't be the house that I live in. Right? That's not an investment. I also have to act in the best interest of my IRA, and I just get benefit from distributions. So if I own a house, let's say I own a rental property as Nate Hare or in my LLC, I'm not allowed to have my IRA buy my stuff because I represent both sides. It's a conflict of interest. My IRA investments or my 401k investments or even my HSA investments, any of those plans, the investments have to be transacted with what we call non-disqualified people. So who are the disqualified people, Lindsay?
Before we continue, can you say fiduciary one more time?
Fiduciary.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so there are some people that you are not allowed to transact with, as Nate hinted at. Those people are typically anybody of lineal ascent or descent to yourself, plus your spouse. Those are the people that your IRA cannot transact with. Now, transact can mean a lot of different things to Nate's point earlier, but what that means is that these particular individuals or companies that they may own cannot transact with the investments within your IRA. So for example, if Nate decided to purchase a condo near a university, he could not allow his 20-year-old daughter to rent that property from his IRA. That particular party needs to be someone that's at arm's length. Now, there's only a couple people that you cannot transact with. There are millions and trillions of other people that you can transact with. So don't get hung up on that. But we do have a lot of people that decide, oh yeah, I want to buy this property in my Roth IRA that's near the ASU, the ASU
Campus.
Thank you.
It's okay.
I kept wanting to say campground.
It's okay.
In my old age. Yes.
Yep,
thank you
forget
so
words
much.
at your old age.
Getting there just like you and your gray hairs. But as we get closer to that campus, though, they want to buy that property. They want their daughter or son to be able to live in that property. It's a no-go. The child cannot actually pay your IRA rental income for that particular transaction. So even though that person's out, maybe they've got friends that you can rent it to. It just has to be somebody that's unrelated. So no one of lineal ascent, descent, yourself or your spouse, or companies owned by those individuals can transact with your IRA's investments.
And there's a reason why. You guys probably might notice there's certain family members that are not on the list. And you're wondering, well, can my IRA transact with my brother? Yes, by tax code, it can transact with your brother.
Now, if you actually want to or should, that's on you.
That's
I don't know about your relationship.
But here's the reason why they disqualify those specifically people, which is the IRA owner, their spouse, parents, grandparents, kids, and grandkids, is that when the IRA owner dies, who usually gets the IRA? The spouse or the kids? So they disqualify the people that are in the line of inheritance to get that account when it becomes an inherited IRA. Family to the side are usually not getting the IRA upon the owner's death. So that's why the IRS is keen about saying, hey, look, if they're going to get the IRA when you die, they're also fiduciaries to the plan, right? Fiduciary, my word of the day. So just understand who your IRA cannot transact with. And like Lindsay said, there's millions and millions of people out there. There's millions of deals out there that don't involve these people. Just understand who you can't transact with.
Absolutely. And just remember that the benefit needs to be to you and your heirs. And that comes from when you take distributions from these plans when you're retired. If you're starting to benefit now before you're retired, that could cause you a prohibited transaction.
Right. So the key is you want to grow these accounts and utilize them for their either tax deferred or preferably, in my mind, tax free distributions. I'll give you a quick example. Can I give a quick example?
I guess.
Okay. So just think of this. I've got a client that has been buying real estate in their self-directed IRA. Now, real estate's a popular one, but again, it goes way outside of real estate. But he has been buying rental properties inside of his self-directed Roth IRA. Okay. Roth IRAs are great when you're talking about distributions. Because what a Roth IRA, as long as you've had a Roth IRA for 5 years and you hit the ripe old age of 59 and a half, don't even say it, Lindsay, hit the ripe old age of 59 and a half, you have what's called tax-free distributions for the rest of your life. Qualified distributions from your Roth. That means your Roth will never be taxed again, and nor will you be when you take distributions. So here's the moral of the story. My client has 12 rental properties not owned by him, the taxpayer, not owned in his LLC, owned in his self-directed Roth IRA, directed IRA. The IRA owns the property, so the renters pay rent to the Roth. That is income. That's not a contribution to the Roth. He's not putting the money in. It's coming from the rental income on the properties owned by the Roth. So he's 59 and a half. He has what's now called qualified distributions. So every month, 12 renters pay rent into his self-directed Roth, and then just he takes a distribution of those rents completely tax-free. He takes about $25,000 out to himself as a tax-free distribution, free of tax. So every year he's living on about $300,000 of rental income going to his Roth that will never be taxed. And meanwhile, here's the craziest thing. His Roth IRA grows every single year because he's not touching the principal balance of the assets, which are the properties. So they're appreciating. He's just living tax-free off the rental income.
He's living the dream.
He's off the grid. He'll never pay taxes again. And here's what he tells me every time he sees me. He goes, Nate, why would I ever buy an investment in my name again? I pay taxes on my money. My Roth doesn't. So if you have a large enough self-directed plan with income producing and appreciating assets, this to me, this is why I'm so passionate about it. That's how I think most Americans can get to retirement and through retirement is understanding how to build that type of wealth inside a retirement plan. And that's what the wealthy have been doing. So how does it work? So if you don't know how it works, this is where a lot of people get stuck on the fence. Oh, yes. They're like, well, it just sounds so tough. Nate, Lindsay, like how does it work? It's actually a lot easier than you would think.
Absolutely. So step number one, before we even get this up on the screen, guys, step number one is going to be to book a phone call with us. Way too many people get analysis paralysis when they're thinking about self-directing. If I had a dime for every time someone said to me, once they actually do sign up, people will say, I wish I did this 4 years ago, Lindsay, when we first talked. And if I had a dime for every single time someone said that to me, I would be retired by now. So don't be one of those people. Don't get analysis paralysis. Call us, book a call with us, have some one-on-one time where you can just pick our brains and ask all of your specific questions so we can clarify some of this for you. After that, the very first step, of course, is to establish your account with us. So on directedira.com, you can establish your brand new self-directed retirement account, regardless of whether that's a traditional IRA, Roth IRA, solo K, whatever you'd like. You can do that all online. It can be done in as little as 5 minutes. We've seen people do it in 2. It doesn't take long, but setting up the account is super duper quick. Step number 2 is to move money into the accounts. This is done by way of your transfers, rollovers, or contributions. We help you with that as well. So this is also another spot where people say, how do I even start the rollover from my old 401k at my prior employer? We help you with all of that. We'll even do a phone call with you and your third-party administrator with your 401k if you get stuck. So don't get stuck. Just just listen to our guidance. We'll be happy to map it all out for you in writing or over phone calls, as many as you need. So that's what we're here for. We've been doing this all day, every day for a few years. So,
and I just want to add something. You can have as many IRAs as you want, by the way. You don't have to shut down your Charles Schwab account. You don't have to shut down your Fidelity account. You're allowed to have as many IRAs as you want. I've got a client that has 35 IRAs. That's a little crazy.
Yeah.
But you can at least have two. You can at least have an IRA that has some stocks and bonds and some paper assets. But you can also open an account with us. You don't have to move all the money over. You could just move a portion of it. But you're allowed to have multiple IRAs. And if you've got one here and you've got one there, I think that gives you the best opportunity for diversification.
Absolutely. Just like we said earlier, even though we are really passionate about alternative assets, we understand the importance of publicly traded assets as being part of your portfolio as well. It's all about diversification and risk evaluation for you personally. So after you open up the account, you move some money over to the account, which we help you with every step of the way. That's when the real fun begins. That's when you get to let us know what you have chosen for your investment. So even though we don't go out and pick those investments for you, or we don't say, hey, call this company to make your investment with them, they're great. That would be considered advice or endorsement, which we just can't do. Once you do find your investments, which we've got guests that come on our webinars all the time. We've got amazing speakers at our Alternative Asset Summit coming up in October. And those are all subject matter experts on different types of alternative investments, and they may potentially have offerings if you're inclined to do your research. But once you've found that investment and you submit that investment request to us, we are then going to look over all of those documents for you, make sure every T is crossed and I is dotted so that it's perfect to be done within your IRA. So front to back, from the moment you establish your account to the moment you're making your first investment, that can vary as far as a timeline goes. We've seen people do it in less than a week, but most people will take 2, 3, 4 weeks to get it all the way across the finish line.
Yeah, and I'll say this, the thing that takes the longest sometimes of 1, 2, and 3 is actually 2. Believe it or not, 2, moving money from another custodian that's probably not going to see it again, that usually can take a little while. I'll say if you're working with Fidelity or Charles Schwab, we can usually do an IRA to IRA transfer within 3 to 5 business days. Lindsay oversees that team. They're great. They get things funded as fast as you can get them funded. But sometimes if you're moving money from, let's say, an old 401k, right? You've got a 401k, maybe you just left your job, maybe it's a 403b, a TRS plan. Those have to be initiated on their end. We'll still ask you to fill out some documents to let us know you've got some money coming. And I'm going through this right now, by the way, it could take 30 days. But it's not in our control. But the faster you get that ball rolling, get the account open, and at least start initiating the rollover. Once you have the money here in the self-directed account, we usually get investments processed within 2 to 3 business days. So just make sure you get it funded, and then we're ready to rock and roll. And there's generally 2 things that we ask for when you are going to deploy money for an investment. We're going to ask for one, it's called our direction of investment form. This is a form that you can find in your client portal. You can also get it on our website, or you can just ask our team to send you one. This direction of investment form is a simple fill in the blank form that just tells us what are your intentions to invest in. Is it real estate? Is it a note? Is it an investment into a private hedge fund? Is it a crypto IRA? Cattle, right? So we have different forms for different investments. And if it's really weird, like cattle, we've got a general one. So you just fill out that form. The form is the equivalent of you logging into Fidelity and pushing a button that says buy, right? We don't have a button to buy a rental property. We don't have a button to buy other things. But that form is you, the client, giving us the instruction to make the investment. Now, with that form, we also need a copy of the agreement. Now, different investments will have different agreements, right? We'll talk about lending. In the lending situation, the agreement is the promissory note, right? You'll have an attorney draft a promissory note if you're lending. If you're buying real estate, we need a copy of the contract, the purchase contract. And the most important thing that we're looking for as the IRA custodian is that the buyer on the property, the lender on the loan, or whatever the investment is, you have the name of your IRA as the investor. And as soon as you open an account, you get a welcome email and it gives you what's called your IRA's vesting. Okay. Any IRA with us, okay, the vesting for that IRA starts with us as the custodian, directed trust company. FBO stands for the benefit of, and then your account will start with your name and IRA account type. So let's say my Roth IRA is going to buy a rental property. I'm going to negotiate with the seller as the IRA's fiduciary. I'm going to negotiate that whole thing. But when it comes to drafting the purchase contract, if my Roth IRA is going to be the buyer on the contract is Directed Trust Company, FBO, Nate Hare Roth IRA. This is no different than what Fidelity does, right? Fidelity, when they buy stock or they hold a publicly traded stock in your Roth IRA, they do hold a document evidencing the ownership of that investment. And guess what it says on that stock certificate? Fidelity Investments, FBO, Nate Hare Roth IRA. We're doing the same exact thing. We're just not buying a stock. We're buying real estate. And at the end of the day, when we buy that investment, we're sending the money directly to the title company or to the attorney's office or directly to the third party. We're not giving you the money to yourself because that's a distribution. We're sending it directly to the investment sponsor or directly to the title company. That way, what we're doing is we're exchanging your IRA's asset of cash for an asset of real estate, asset of cash for an asset of a loan. And then what we hold as evidence of your IRA's investment is if it's real estate, we hold the deed. The deed shows ownership, Directed Trust Company, FBO, Nate Hare Roth IRA. So when you break it down, it's really that simple. We're not buying stocks, we're buying real estate or whatever it is. We're going to retain documents that show ownership in the name of your IRA. And that way you get all your tax exempt or tax-free growth and all the income comes back to the IRA. So let's look at an actual real life case study.
Before we jump into an example, I'm so sorry to cut you off. So first and foremost, guys, that was a lot of information. This is part of the one-on-one class though. What we want you to know is that when you are going through these steps 1, 2, and 3, opening the account, funding the account, and ultimately making your investment, keep in mind, we are here to help you. So you may forget your titling, you may forget the next step as far as how to get things going for your investment. Call us, send us a letter, text message, email, whatever it is. We're here to, people still send those. Remember those back in the day? You probably used to write a lot of those when you would balance your checkbook. But we allow you to reach out to us at any time. We're also very proactive in our communication to you along the way to make sure that you're doing okay and that you're not necessarily stuck or anything. But don't get hung up on the nitty gritty details. You know, again, no analysis paralysis here, guys. That's exactly what we're here for, is to clear all of that. Before we jump in, though, I do have a quick question that's related to a raw land investment. Okay. So we'll knock out a couple of questions really quick before we continue on to the examples that Nate has prepared for us today. And those are real life examples, by the way. Those are actual investments that he has seen over the last decade that people have actually done in their IRAs. But we want to ask, so we have one from an anonymous attendee. Everyone likes anonymous today. That's too funny. So the anonymous attendee says, I'm curious about raw land investments through an IRA, but I have no experience in this field. Are there people who will help guide new investors through this process? Not just the IRA part, but the investment strategy itself. Is there a service for that?
So I will say, yes, they are out there. The one thing that we do not provide as your friendly passive custodian is we do not connect you with people to show you an investment. Because we're not licensed to sell you investments, we're not putting A with B. Now, what I will say is a lot of investors that are looking for access to deals or maybe looking for some mentoring, they get out and network. One of the things that Lindsay mentioned real briefly is we do have an opportunity to network with other investors, really savvy investors, very experienced investors, and that's at our annual Alt Asset Summit. If you go to altassetsummit.com, you can still buy tickets to that event. It's
Use Lindsay 100 to get $100
there you go.
off.
Use Lindsay 100, you get $100 off. But that is an event where we put 300, 400 people in a room, and we talk about alternative investments. We'll talk about everything from cryptocurrency to single family, multifamily, long-term rentals, short-term rentals, mineral rights. It's a great place to network. So if you're looking for that mentor or somebody to show you, you got to get out. The self-direction is a little bit more of a relationship business. So you want to get out and meet people that can help, and you can use them as leverage to help you get in a land deal, and you can have your IRA be the buyer on that land.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Nate. Another quick one, and then we'll jump into that example that you had. So this one's a really good question. We get this on a regular basis. People are trying to look for little loopholes and things like that. Another anonymous attendee. Anonymous says, can I invest in a startup that I own 49.9% in? No other disqualified people are involved.
So, so what you're referring to is the disqualified people rule, right? So there's certain people you can't transact with. There's also certain entities you're not allowed to transact with. One of those is any entity that's owned 50% or more by a combination of disqualified people. So here's where a lot of people get the misconception. Oh, if I just set up an entity and I only own 49% of it, then I can have my IRAs invest in that. Another thing that makes something prohibited, though, is if you, the IRA owner, or any disqualified people, gets a personal benefit from the investment. So what I would say is you want to consult with an attorney on this first, because there's two litmus tests to a prohibited transaction. One is the IRA transacting with a disqualified person. If you're mentioning an entity owned 49%, the entity itself is not a disqualified person. However, are you receiving a benefit from the investment? That's the second part of the litmus test. Is there any disqualified person receiving a benefit? So I would probably argue you want to stay out of that investment. You can consult with an attorney, but it's not the entity that's the problem. It's you that's the problem, because you might be getting a benefit from your IRA directly by having it invest in your own startup.
Thank you so much. That was a really good one. We do have some more questions. We're going to table those for right now, and we'll jump into the examples of investments that Nate has, and then we'll circle back.
Example too, which is a good one.
Yes,
Perfect that you brought that up.
We do have some more questions related to investing, so we'll hit those after a couple of examples.
Okay, so here's just a real, just low-hanging fruit, just kind of an easy one. And the reason I bring that up is we have a lot of people that just gravitate towards real estate, right? Real estate's just something people are more familiar with, right? 3-bedroom, 2-bath rental. A lot of people own rentals, right? It's an easier investment, I think, to get in for most people. And guess what? Real estate's the largest segment of our economy. Real estate turns more people into millionaires than any other investment. So a lot of people like to put real estate in their retirement account. So the story with Denise is Denise worked a corporate job, right? She retired and she wanted to go full-time real estate. And a lot of full-time real estate investors, they get out and network, or they join their local RIA, Real Estate Investor Association. We've got them all over the country. Every city, mostly big cities, every city's got a RIA group that you can go and learn and meet. You can also meet off-market real estate investors to find deals. And this is how Denise found access to deals, was through her local RIA in Virginia. Okay. So what Denise did is, once she left her corporate job, this was the first opportunity Denise had to roll her company 401k into an IRA. Now, a lot of people have questions. Well, what if I'm still working at the company? Can I move that 401k over? It depends. It doesn't depend on us. There's no tax code that says you can or you can't. But your employer, when you set up the 401k, there's plan documents that you sign up for, or you opt in for. Depending on the plan documents, it'll say whether or not you're allowed to roll your 401k out while you're still employed. That's called an in-service rollover. So if you're still working at a company, you got a 401k, pick up the phone, call them, talk to the benefits department, and just ask them, do I have in-service rollover options? Usually it's for employees that have been there for X amount of years. You're above a certain age, usually 55 or 59 and a half, and you're fully vested. Or it could be a combination of all three. But when you leave the company, they can't tell you what to do with that 401k. So when you have separation of service, now you can roll that 401k into an IRA with Fidelity, or you can roll it to us. So Denise wanted to buy real estate. So most 401ks, remember, are pre-taxed accounts, right? If you're putting money in and you're getting a tax deduction on your contributions, and your employer's matching, they're also getting tax deductions on those contributions. You have a retirement plan, but all the funds in the plan haven't been taxed. It's just called pre-tax. So by default, when you roll that into an IRA, it rolls into the pre-tax IRA, which is a traditional IRA. Okay, still a good IRA. It's still not taxed when you grow it, but you do pay taxes when you take distributions. We'll get to that in a second. So Denise rolled her old company 401k into a traditional self-directed IRA, and she went out to find a property. She found somebody at the local RIA selling this 4-unit property. She striked up a pretty good deal, right? The real estate, the initial real estate investor found it at a good deal and basically bought it and was going to flip it to Denise's IRA in this case. So what Denise does is she negotiates the terms. She self-directs, right? She meets with the seller, she talks to the person, and she strikes up a purchase price of $375,000. The difference is Denise's name isn't on the contract. Her directed trust company IRA is, right? So the buyer on the contract reads Directed Trust Company for the benefit of Denise Roberts IRA. That contract is sent to us. We sign as the buyer, and then we send the signed contract back to the seller's agent. Okay. From that point on, we go off what the purchase contract says, and we work with Denise to send money directly from her IRA to make an investment in real estate. And we send first the $5,000 earnest money right from her IRA to the title company. So all Denise is doing at this point is just quarterbacking the deal, involving us as the IRA custodian, right? And we're going to have everything in the name of the IRA from the very beginning. Okay. So she works with our investments team to start getting the ball rolling. And we lock up the contract basically with an earnest money deposit in the name of the IRA.
Yeah, no, I wanted to kind of highlight that earnest money piece before we proceed. So a lot of people will misinterpret this and they think that the $5,000 is actually a distribution.
No.
It's not a distribution. You are not taking possession of that money, so it's not taxed or penalized. That $5,000 is in your IRA. You are not touching it. You are telling us to send it to the closing attorney or whoever it is that you're having the money sent over to. So the money goes from your IRA directly over to that third party. And so you are not taking possession of it. And we have way too many people that think, oh yeah, I'm sure I can buy a piece of real estate with my IRA monies, but now I'm going to be tax penalized and I have 60 days to get it back into the IRA.
Right.
Not the case. That $5,000, that was strictly for an investment. And that's what really kicked her off for this investment.
Yeah, it's an investment expense at the end of the day. It's not a distribution to Denise, right? And she's not buying it herself and then trying to dump it in the IRA. Everything is in the name of the IRA from the very beginning. The buyer is the IRA. The money comes from the IRA, and it goes directly to the seller or to the title company. So once we close on the property, okay, once we send the final deployment of funds to the title company is going to close that property and show ownership on the county tax record as directed trust company for the benefit of Denise's IRA. If you want to have a little test, do a little homework, go to your county assessor's page right now, do a parcel search or do a property search and just type the words FBO. Guess what you're going to find? You're going to see all the people in your area that have bought property through self-directed IRAs, and it's going to start with Directed Trust Company, FBO, client's name, Equity Trust Company, FBO. You'll see that. So that's the owner of record, and then we retain the deed as evidence of what the IRA owns. Now, from that point, now we got to talk about expenses and income, okay? If there's any expenses on the property, that also has to come out of the IRA. We have a process for that, right? Once we show that the IRA owns a property, now we got to pay a contractor. Okay, so what's Denise do? She contacts Directed IRA. She says, hey, I've got this contractor I got to pay. How do I do it? We say, fill out this payment authorization. Tell us how much we need to pay and give us some wiring instructions on where it needs to go. Maybe include an invoice also to show what we're paying. So again, we're not giving Denise 20 grand as a distribution. We're sending it directly to the third party, and it's just an investment expense. Everything is an investment. The property is an investment. Paying the contractor is an investment expense. And then the rental income is investment income. So that's not called a contribution. And guess what? Profit is unlimited. Contributions are limited, but profit on the investment is unlimited. So here's how, there's a couple different ways you can work this. I would say if your IRA owns one 3-bedroom, 2-bath rental, it's pretty easy to just tell the renter of that property to say, hey, make a check payable to Directed Trust Company, FBO, Nate Hare IRA, and send it to Directed Trust Company. Here's the address. On this property, she's got more than one tenant, right? She's got 4 units on this. So I would say this is probably advisable. Just get a property manager to handle this for you. You don't need to handle it, and you don't need us handling individual checks. She just put her property manager in place. The property manager, A, makes sure that it's rented, right? Deals with all the tenant issues, collects the rent, keeps whatever is left to pay for any common repairs if there are any common repairs. And then the property manager just cuts one check to Directed IRA from the 4 tenants. And then we dump that in her IRA as profit. The profit's tax exempt. She can redeploy it. She can buy more investments. She can move it back to Fidelity. But everything's going in and out of the IRA. No contribution, no distribution. So on this particular deal, there was no debt on this property. There could be debt, but there was no debt on this property. She bought it cash. After expenses, she averaged about $4,200 a month in rent right to her IRA. So if you just looked at the rents, we're not even talking about appreciation. She collected over $100,000 over 2 years just in rental income on that property, untaxed. tax exempt because it's to her IRA. It's not to her, it's income to her IRA. But the property also did perform very well. She bought it at the right time. She bought it in a good area, nice up and coming area. So when she looked at the current value after 2 years of ownership in the IRA, the property had increased to $497,000 was the current appraised value. So if you look at this deal, and this was Denise's first deal, and I wouldn't even call this a home run deal. This was just a deal that she found. She had $100,000 of rental income. If you think about her basis, how much was she in it for? She bought it for $375,000, or her IRA bought it for $375,000, paid a contractor $20,000, so it's in it grand total of $395,000. When you add the appreciation and the rental income, she made 21.89% on this investment. But here's the cool thing. This is an outdated case study. What happens with properties and rents almost every single year? Property values go up, rents go up. So, but the purchase price and the price she paid to acquire it, they don't change. So when you factor that in, her annual ROI is no longer 21.89%. When I talked to her last, it was 45% on an annual basis.
That's amazing. I love that.
So that's the beautiful part about real estate in an IRA. Appreciating, cash flowing assets that aren't taxed. Now I'll say this. Okay, I did have another conversation with Denise. She wishes she would have done that in her Roth IRA.
Oh, yeah. She did it in her traditional. Dang it.
She did it in her traditional. Still a great investment. But remember, on traditional IRAs, you have to pay taxes when you get to distributions. So when she hits 59 and a half, she has to pay taxes on those distributions. But here's the other thing. You also have RMDs, right?
Yeah, you're very familiar with those at your age.
You also have required minimum distributions on traditional IRAs at 73. So if you're looking to preserve more wealth without being forced to take assets out, you might want to think about converting your traditional IRAs to Roth IRAs first. There's some strategies there, and we've got an upcoming webinar on Roth conversions. But good deal, Denise. She made far more returns, far better returns doing this one deal than she ever did in her company-sponsored 401k. All right, so here's another one. Okay, had a client, Eddie. Okay, Eddie wasn't doing real estate, but Eddie had a financial friend that was, guess what? Had a startup company. Okay, his financial friend was in the medical field, worked for some corporate medical companies. It broke off on his own and started a medical device company. So Eddie was talking to his financial friend, and his friend said, you know what? I've got this medical device. It's got these patents. I've got approvals for all different things, but I'm really struggling. I've put all my money into this company, and I'm looking for some private investors to help it grow. I need more money for marketing. I need more money for equipment. I need more money to build product. So, and this was a very early stage company, right? We see a lot of clients that might invest in private companies, and maybe the companies issue private stock to investors, right? Private stock, same thing as public stock. It's just not publicly traded. But this company was very new. It wasn't even at the stage where it was issuing any private stock. So our investor client decided, you know what? I've got some money in my self-directed Roth IRA. What if we struck a deal where I can give you money out of my Roth IRA as an investment, but let's structure it in a way where it benefits my Roth IRA. So what they ended up doing, and this is a little bit more advanced, but this just goes to show you the creativity here that you can use to leverage your IRA and make it grow. So what the client decided to do is said, hey, I've got $50,000 in my Roth IRA. What if my Roth IRA loaned your company the money, right? We would detail those terms on a promissory note. My attorney will draft it, right? You could pay 8% annual interest. You don't even need to pay it monthly. You just pay it annually to my IRA. But I like where your company's going, and I want the option to, down the road, convert this investment, this $50,000 investment, into shares of the company. Now, the investor friend, the financial friend, was all for it. He said, yes, that would help me grow. That would help me market. That would help me do all the things I need to do. Yes, I'll do that. So ultimately what our client Eddie had, it's called a convertible note. Okay, you can hold all sorts of notes, but convertible note, all it means is it's a note. The borrower is the financial friend's company. The lender is Directed Trust Company for the benefit of Eddie's IRA or Eddie's Roth IRA. He submits that promissory note along with his direction investment form. We send the $50,000 to the company, and then he just lets the borrower pay interest annually of 8% back to the IRA, tax-free because it's a Roth IRA. Now, later down the road, the company starts picking up speed. Later down the road, the company now starts issuing private stock. So what Eddie decided to do is execute his option in that note to convert the note, the $50,000 note investments, to $50,000 of private stock share. A couple years later, that private stock, that private company goes public, right? So Eddie made an investment, $50,000 out of his Roth IRA to a pre-IPO, way before pre-IPO, to a company that was just starting up, basically starting out of the garage. And that investment ended up turning into $1 million investment once that company went publicly traded.
Off of $50,000.
Off a $50,000 investment. You know who else did this, by the way, guys? Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel did something similar. If you're familiar with Peter Thiel, he's the self-directed IRA case study for all of us. He invested his self-directed Roth IRA into Facebook before Facebook went public. Okay, his Roth IRA, self-directed Roth IRA, today is worth $7 billion.
It's ridiculous.
Right? This is where the rich and the wealthy. This could be you. Now, again, it's very high risk, so you want to mitigate this, and most wealth advisors will say you don't want all your eggs in one basket. Of
course.
But this is a good way to invest. Some people call it angel investing, right? A good way to invest in non-publicly traded investments. And here's the key, back to the question we had earlier. This was not Eddie's company, right? He can't invest in his own startup, but he invested in somebody that was non-disqualified startup, right? And it turned out to be a very good investment for Eddie's Roth IRA.
Beautiful. We're going to jump into crypto in a little bit here, but before we do that, I do have another real estate question that I would like to ask from the audience here. Another anonymous attendee. You guys are so funny. It says, I would like to invest in real estate as soon as there is enough in the IRA to do so, with margin for unexpected expenses. Is there a rough estimate of how much one should have in the IRA or 401k as a minimum before one looks into real estate? Just a ballpark figure.
Great question. I will say this. If you want some additional education, go to our Directed IRA YouTube page. Look for buying real estate with and without debt.
Yep.
There's a couple case studies on there, and I'll just give you some quick examples. Your IRA can get a loan to buy real estate. There's actually banks out there. You can find them on our website, on our resource page. Look up, non-recourse lenders. So we got non-recourse lenders. These are banks that have loan products to IRAs. They'll loan your IRA money. All you need to come down with from the IRA is enough for a down payment. Now, I will say most of the banks, they want at least 30 to 40% down from the IRA because they qualify it like a DSCR loan. The IRA doesn't have a FICO score. There's no tax return. So they just want a larger down payment. That's how the bank qualifies it. But there's other ways you can get into real estate with even less of a down payment. On that webinar, that if you watch it, Buying Real Estate With and Without Debt, I've got a client that used $6,000 to buy 3 warehouses. He bought it with the IRA being the buyer, and they carried back a note. Basically, the owner carried back a note to the 401k, which he used, which was the buyer. So it was a $6,000 down payment, and the self-directed 401k just made payments to the original owner over time. Okay. You also can buy property subject to. You can just take over the payments of somebody's property if they're willing to make that agreement, so you don't even have to get a loan. And in that type of investing, all you're doing is really having the IRA come in with catching up the mortgage payments or maybe some cash for keys. And your IRA is essentially taking title to the property and then just paying off the loan that's already on the property. So moral of the story is creative financing that real estate investors use. You can also leverage that inside of an IRA.
Yeah, and also start thinking about your family members or your network. Do you have individuals in your life that have, whether it's IRA savings or retirement savings or not, but do you have people that could use their own self-directed retirement accounts or your kids' Roth IRAs to then lend you the money or to go in on a deal with you so that you can kind of combine all of your, start to partner, find some private money lenders. You don't have to get a traditional mortgage for a property deal. And when it comes to IRAs, investing in real estate, your IRA cannot get a traditional mortgage. So to Nate's point, you can absolutely do the non-recourse loans or get some private money lenders or combine forces with multiple accounts that may be in your community already. Yeah. Another quick question that somebody had before I jump into the crypto. So Anonymous says, once I've made an investment from my self-directed IRA, is there any annual forms that need to be filed? For example, if I invested $25,000 in a startup company and it has yet to have any real revenue or subsequent financial raises, is there anything I need to do to update my self-directed account in terms of fair market value or other information for record purposes of regulatory requirements?
I think he just answered his own question.
He sure did. this person actually seems to know a little bit about what they're doing. So love it that you just want to confirm. And when it comes to the fair market value for alternative investments, and I'll go through this pretty quickly, but the fair market value is something that needs to be shared with us here at Directed Trust Company. So if you use your Roth IRA to purchase shares of a startup company, we can't go out in a month or a year and figure out what the value is of that private company on our own. It's not like a publicly traded stock where you can go see the value, published anywhere. It unfortunately has to come directly from you. So you would work with that startup company who would likely have valuations done anyways. And if there have been any changes to the fair market value of that particular investment, then you would report it to us so that we can in turn report it on your 5498 to the IRS.
Yeah, and that's really all that we require as far as an annual thing is just the fair market value form. It's just a form that you submit to us saying, hey, the value is this. The reason why we have that is because we're not holding stocks. There's no readily assessed value that we could just go on. And remember that article that I reverted to early in the game? This is what they had as put into play was the fair market value. So we're required by the IRS to show them what is in the IRAs and what the value of those IRAs. And all we do is we ask for your help to tell us what the value is. Oftentimes the value doesn't change. That's okay. Just give us the fair market value, no change to the account. Sometimes the investment goes down and you want to let us know, hey, it's not worth what it was worth. Should I drop? Yes. So just once a year, we send a notification to our clients, submit your FMVs. And if you need help, just give us a call.
Exactly. All right, guys. So we've had a lot of real estate talk that Nate's shared with us, but let's talk about one of the other investments that you actually can own in your IRA, and that is crypto. Now, I saw a question earlier in the chat that Michelle already took care of. It was in regards to crypto and what coins can you purchase. The sky's the limits, okay? So Gemini's got a lengthy list of different types of crypto that you can actually invest in. You're not limited to just Bitcoin, but the answer is yes, you can invest in crypto with your Roth IRA, traditional IRA, any self-directed retirement account. And I thought this was pretty cool. But outside of Bitcoin, you can also do Ethereum, you can do Nano, you can do Numerai, you can do Oracles, you can do Paxos, Orchid. The list goes on. Polkadot's even on here. I didn't even know Polkadot was a thing. That's awesome. But Gemini, that platform that we utilize for our Gemini trading, and that's where our clients log in to their trading platform to make their own investments, and they choose their own cryptocurrencies. But those are just some of the many that are on the list and available to people at Gemini. At the bottom there, you do see this beautiful graph. This is a 5-year graph of the growth of Bitcoin over a 5-year period. Okay. So just for sake of example, if you invested $10,000 into Bitcoin in March of 2020, today, drum roll please, that would be worth $130,000. Guys, that's a 1,200% increase. So just imagine if you made that investment in your Roth IRA, now you're sitting on $120,000 that you will never pay taxes on. So it's pretty cool. And just comparing that with something in the more traditional market, if you guys monitor or watch the S&P 500 at all, SPY is one of the tickers that I know I own personally in one of my IRAs. The growth on that over 5 years is 87%. That's pretty dang good still. 87% is awesome. But it just goes to show when you take a look at alternative assets, some of them out there may give you a better return potentially. So for Bitcoin, as that example, over the last 5 years, it's 1,200% return. That's
Here's the other thing that I'll mention too, because I know you Bitcoin investors outside of an IRA. I've seen, and I'm talking about the active traders. You like to buy and hold, which is good.
Yes.
But you traders out there, you know what I'm talking to. I've seen the reports you have to give to your CPA, and they're like this thick, right? You got to report every trade, every buy, every sell. Guess how many forms you have to turn in for your IRA? 0, because there's no annual tax reporting for an IRA. Everything's tax exempt. They don't care about your trades, right? So not only if you invest in it, it's tax free. You don't have to worry with all the paperwork. You don't have to notify the IRS of anything.
Yeah, so if you're one of those crypto lovers out there, you can open up what's called a crypto retirement account here with us. Again, that's just a marketing term. All that does is it signals to us that we need to set you up with Gemini trading platform as well once we get your application in. So if you are looking to invest in crypto, make sure you don't do the normal self-directed retirement account application. You'll want to pick specifically the crypto IRA options there on the website.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap it up here, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just remind people, if you have questions, if you want to set up a crypto account, if you want to set up a regular self-directed account and start buying real estate, start investing into private businesses, it's easy. You just scan that QR code, talk to any one of our team. If you do it this week, guess what? You get $200 off every single account you establish, right? Whether it's a traditional, a Roth, a SEP, a 401k, a ESA and HSA, a crypto account. We also have Michelle on the line. Michelle, if you want to throw your book a call link in there again so people can book with you, right? We'll walk you through the application. We'll even do it with you over the phone if you want to. But this special only goes until the end of the month. So try to do it this week if you can. And just to wrap up, guys, you can own anything in a retirement plan outside of life insurance contracts and collectibles. You don't need a lot of capital to do it, right? You just got to be creative. Go look at some of our other classes. Go look at some of our other courses. We talk more in specifics. But again, you can invest whatever you want. We don't have minimum account balances here at Directed IRA.
I invested in a $5,000 trust deed as an example. You don't need a lot to get started.
Crowdfunding, another great self-directed IRA investment that a lot of times you don't need a lot of money to invest in it. But the self-directed IRAs give you the ability to diversify out of the stock market, out of public assets, and start investing in some Main Street assets. But beware of the disqualified people's rules, right? We know who are my IRAs not allowed to transact with, and they're able to transact with everybody outside of that. And just remember, self-direction, it is a networking it's a relationship building type of account. If you don't have access to deals, that's okay. Get out and network. It's old school, man. We get out there, we network, we shake hands, we meet people, we meet hotel syndicators, we meet commercial syndication operators, we meet we meet all sorts of people. And guess what? You'll be able to meet those people at our annual Alternative Asset Summit. Just go to altassetsummit.com. Use Lindsay 100 if you want to save $100 off any ticket.
Or you can use Nate 100. Let's have a competition.
Use
so
Lindsay
100 or Nate 100, pick your favorite.
But this is a good way to get educated. Just look at the speakers. I mean, if you go through the speakers, I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't be there. Guys like Pace Morby, Carlton Dennis,
Nate Hare,
Matt Sorensen, our CEO and author of the book, the Self-Directed IRA Handbook, Mark J. Kohler, Troy Eckert with Eckert Enterprises. I mean, the list of speakers is the best set of speakers we've ever put on one stage.
Oh, and if you're a VIP, if you do a VIP ticket, and that promo code gets you $100 off of all ticket types. But if you do the VIP ticket, you actually get to come to a very exclusive Fleming's dinner where most of the speakers are going to be as well, so you can mingle with them.
That's a great way to get in touch with some investment sponsors there. So we're just going to wrap it up. Do we have any other questions? And I hope this was beneficial to you guys. I hope it just gave you a little bit better of a grasp of what you can do with the self-directed IRA and what not to do with the self-directed IRA. Yeah. And make sure that you just contact us if you have any questions, whether you're a client or not.
Yeah, we took care of all the questions. Michelle was keeping up. They had a ton in there. So thanks everybody for your participation, your engagement, tons of questions in the chat, which just tells us that you guys are listening and you're eager for this information. So thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, guys. Have a good rest of your week.
See ya.